Hello everyone, this is Defense Politics Asia, and this is the summary for the day of 710 to 711 for the 3rd to the 4th of February. Let's start off with the frontline changes report, and the first we need to talk about is actually not Avdiivka, Yampolivka first. Let's start off with Yampolivka. So over at the Kreminna Front, this is Kreminna city, and this is Yampolivka. At the Yampolivka region, there is a Russian assault that was captured on film, and they actually captured this tree line or this forest region with the Russian forces geolocated within this location over here. And this invalidated Ukrainian claims that was around here, and also captured more ground that was previously not claimed by the Russian forces. So this, if I zoom out a little bit, you can see that this Terny, Yampolivka, and the Russians making some progress in this area here. And we move to the biggest development over at the Avdiivka Front. So the Battle of Avdiivka continues with Russian forces having major success over in the northern part of Avdiivka. So as per I mentioned, so this is Avdiivka city, and in the northern part, the Russian forces has been taking a lot of grounds, and I did allude to this possibility due to the geographic limitations that the Ukrainians have to face, and in fact the Russians managed to even capture more than that. So this frontline change is actually done by Deep State UA, the pro-Ukrainian source. The Ukrainians are the one that conceded this territory based on their mapping. We have made this update, and the Russian forces basically have captured these two tree lines, and they have managed to go all the way to this lake. They managed to link up with the previous capture that was previously done over here, and basically close up this gap. And like I mentioned before, the Ukrainians would not be able to reinforce through a direct easy route. They have to go one big round. As a result, the Ukrainians just gave up. They just abandoned the position, and they are withdrawing away from this location. And further than that, the Russians also make grounds around this southwest of Kayamka over here. Southwestern part, the Russians are also pushing, which means that the Ukrainian forces is going to give up the entire area around the lake region. And more surprisingly is the Russians penetrating through the forest in the northern part of Avdiivka city, and are going very close to the southeastern part of the coke plant over here. So so I will talk more about this, the strategic tactical and analysis about this in the conclusions. So yeah, check out the conclusions when it's out. And this is the frontline changes over in this northern part of Avdiivka, and this is the frontline changes report. And we go to the strategic and tactical situation around the rest of the Ukraine front lines. Over in the Kupyansk Front, at the Kupyansk Front, the Russians are still being reported to be fighting in the area of Ivanivka as well as Sinkivka. This is Kupyansk city, and this is the Kupyansk Front, in case you do not know. And so the main fighting is around here. The Ukrainians are reportedly attacking in the Liman Lake region as well as Sinkivka. Mainly it's over on the 3rd of February, whereas Sinkivka was reported on both days, 3rd and the 4th. The Russians were attacking Sinkivka and Ivanivka, and this report only comes on the 3rd of February. Same for Sinkivka. On the 4th of February, the Ukrainian Defense Ministry said that the Russians did not launch any offensive in the Kupyansk direction. So yeah, so that is interesting. And so there is some geolocation of Ukrainian forces southwest of Ivanivka, not very important around this area. And this is the strategic situation at the Kupyansk Front. We move on over to the Sviatove. We do not have any any updates in terms of the Sviatove front, which is over here. We move into the Kreminna Front, which is further south. And so this is Kreminna city, and as mentioned in the frontline changes report, we already know that the Russians are attacking Yampolivka. However, the Russian Defense Ministry also said that the Ukrainians are attacking Yampolivka. Similar situation is over at Terny. The clashes continues between the two sides. The Ukrainian forces are also attacking Dibrova over here. and the Russian forces are attacking through the Serebrenskoye forestry. So this is the strategic situation over at the Kreminna Front. It's pretty much standard already. You probably can recognize it's pretty much the same thing. We move into the Siversk Front in the south of the Kreminna Front. So this is Siversk city. And at the Siversk Front, the Russian forces are attacking Bilohorivka in the Luhansk region, and that's about it. There is some geolocation of Ukrainian forces over in the Vasily region. So if you zoom in a bit, the Ukrainian forces is geolocated around here, and it's pretty much within the where our front line of where the Ukrainians are. So there's no change in terms of the front line due to this geolocation, but it just happens to confirm that the Ukrainians are over in this region. We move on away from the Siversk Front into the Bakhmut Front. So this is Bakhmut city, the infamous Bakhmut city, and this is the Bakhmut Front. Over the Bakhmut Front in the northern flank, the similar situation continues with the Russian forces attacking in the area of Bodanivka, and the Ukrainians counterattack over at Ivanivsky in a surprise, because previously it's always been the Russians attacking. So this time around we have the Ukrainians counterattacking, and this is the strategic situation. We don't have any other information about this area here other than Ivanivsky is getting shelled by the Russian forces. That's geolocated. Over in the southern flank, we have some geolocation of Lancet attacks against Ukrainian positions or equipments in the rear position near Zaporizhzhia, and there is also Russians being reportedly attacking in the region of Klishchiivka. There is a previous in the previous frontline changes report, the Ukrainian forces managed to seems to have some grounds in the south of the lake in the eastern part of Klishchiivka, but generally the Russians are geolocated in the attacking the railway line, or they are at the railway line region, and the Ukrainian forces in the north of Klishchiivka. None of this changes the front line. The only one is over this location, and so the situation at Klishchiivka, as you can see, the Russians have this area pretty much like a gray zone, which is why we have the geolocation of Russian forces attacking in this area here. And Ukrainian forces geolocated here just shows how close the front line is, because Deep State UA actually marked this forest region here and all the way up this road here as under Russian control. So which is why Ukrainians geolocated here it just shows how close the front line is between the two forces. They're probably able to sync to each other, which they did before. And so that's it from the Bakhmut Front. Into the New-York Front. So this is New York City, this is Donetsk, and over the New York Front, the Ukrainian forces, according to the Russian Defense Ministry, attacked in the region of Pivdene or Leninskoye. So the Ukrainian forces were attacking in this area here towards the direction of Holivka, which is a major city in Donetsk Oblast. If I zoom out, you probably see Holivka. So this attack probably wouldn't go anywhere. So no, it's just going to be a probing kind of thing, and this area here is pretty much a no man's land. So any maneuver over that location is going to be very it will just stand out in the sore thumb kind of thing. So over at the Avdiivka Front, so this is Avdiivka city. So this is where the highlight of the Russian current operation is, with the Russian forces attacking Novokalinove towards Novobakhmutivka towards Stepove, or in the region of Stepove. They attack in the north of Avdiivka from the region of Kayamka as well. They're attacking from the south, but pretty much more stagnant, more positional over in the south. There's fighting reported near Spartak, in the north of Spartak. There's Russians attack towards Zhivane, towards Tonenke, towards Pervomaisky. Drop bad arrow. Towards Pervomaisky and Nevelsky. So the Russians have reignited the entire Avdiivka offensive. If you remember the last SITREP, the Russian forces is basically concentrating over around Avdiivka alone, and also at the Pervomaisky and Nevelsky region alone. We do not have this Tonenke Zhivane situation, as well as the Stepove, Novobakhmutivka, Novokalinove situation. These are an expansion, and it seems to be the Russians are trying to catch on the momentum that is being generated with this success push in the north of Avdiivka. And this breakthrough, it looks very big in terms of land area, but of course you have to look at the strategic situation. which I will talk more about it in the conclusions. I don't want to bore you with my analysis because this is the situation report. We talk about the situation only, we'll talk about analysis later. So over at the Donetsk Front, so you can see this is Donetsk city, and this is the Donetsk Front. At the Donetsk Front, over at the Marinka sector, which is over here, the Russian forces are continuing their attack towards Krasnohorivka. They are attacking Georgievka as well as in the region of Novomihailivka. So these reports come from the Ukrainian Defense Ministry. So this is not Russian propaganda, it's Ukrainian propaganda. And so various geolocations don't really talk much. It's basically Russians attacking each other, attacking the Ukrainian side, the Ukrainian attacking the Russian side. No, nothing very significant to talk about, so I don't want to bore you with the details. Over in the Voleda, the other sector of this Donetsk front, the Russians reportedly attacked Voleda. This is according to the Russian Defense Ministry. Ukrainian Defense Ministry continued to report the Russians attack in the south of Zolota Neva, and this continues to be what I'm going to be watching, of course. But attack towards Voleda is interesting. They're putting pressure on the Ukrainian forces as these lines are all looking a bit shaky, but of course the front line pretty much held, except for the loss of Marinka. The Ukrainian forces have been very successful at holding most of the line. Of course, the Russians are are pushing Novomihailivka, and that is actually breaking down. So we move into the Zaporizhzhia Front. So this is Zaporizhzhia city, and this is the Zaporizhzhia Front. Over the Zaporizhzhia Front, we have fighting reported at the Velika Novosilka sector. This is Velika Novosilka. The Russians attacking north of Prione as well as towards Uruzhaine. Ukrainians are not mentioned to be attacking. So this is the situation at the Velika Novosilka sector. We move west, nothing at the Huyaipole sector. We move into the Orikhiv sector. Orikhiv sector is a bit interesting because the Russians continue to be attacking Nesteryanka. They are attacking Robotine, the west of Verbove and Verbove. And this continues to be intriguing, especially the Nesteryanka one. This is something like the Zolota Neva situation. So let's see how this progress. Ukrainian forces geolocated just off Novoporovska, showing where the front line is, and pretty much didn't change our front line. So I zoom in a bit, you can see that the front line is basically just outside of Novoporovska. The Russians are holding the settlement of Novoporovska. And we move to the Kayamsky sector, the very last sector of the Zaporizhzhia Front. This is Kayamsky, and the Russians are reportedly attacking Shebaki. So this is Shebaki, and the Russians are attacking it. The reports come from the Russian Defense Ministry. They say that they are attacking it. So they also say that they're attacking at Nesteryanka. So we are going to monitor and see how this progress. And particularly, it's important to note that Nesteryanka, as well as the attack towards Shebaki, is very near to each other. So it's on the either flank of this entrenchment. And there's also other heavy entrenchments around this area here. So the Russians are pushing outwards. So we shall continue to monitor. Like I said, this is disastrous if the Russians are able to break through. And we move on to the Kherson Front. So this Kherson city, this is the Kherson Front. At the Kherson Front, Ukrainian forces continue to have a position at Krinky, and this can be confirmed by the Ukrainian Defense Ministry's own reporting. So on both days, 3rd and 4th, they mention about the Russians trying to dislodge Ukrainians off their bridgehead, but it's important to note that they say that the Russians carried out airstrikes in the area of Krinky, which confirms the Ukrainian forces are at Krinky, and this continues over on the next day as well. Krinky was mentioned again, this confirming that the Ukrainian forces have positions within Krinky itself. But also there is a drone footage of Krinky appearing, showing the entire settlement is flat. It's entirely flattened. Every building is destroyed, and whatever remains, whatever hiding spot that was remaining is getting airstrikes and artillery strikes. So it's a very disastrous area. And any soldiers going to be there is just living in hell. There is a geolocation of a Lancet attack, I believe. I didn't take note what weaponry, but basically a Ukrainian T-64 tank was destroyed south of Avdiivka. So over here, Otherwise, there's no other geolocations of Ukrainian forces getting attacked. Oh, there is one more. There's a barge that was destroyed along the Dnipro River. So the reducing number of geolocation might suggest that the supporting elements might be running out on the Ukrainian side. But of course, it could be also the Russians failing to find all these Ukrainian equipments. But we did have months of this geolocation, so at least 2 months, so that's bad. And one more report away from the Kherson Front over at Crimea. There is confirmation from reported by Deep State UA through satellite imaging that the Russian airbase at Belbek airbase was hit by the Ukrainian attack. It's probably missile attack. This if you zoom in, this row of buildings was destroyed, and this is also where the Ukrainian claims, the pro-Ukrainians Twitter or whatever, they are very excited about this, saying that a lot of top commanders or generals was killed over this area, and they are also linking this attack, this success of the attack at this airbase, with the alleged missingness of Gerasimov, basically the top general in the Russian Federation, the Russian Armed Forces, commander-in-chief below the defense minister. So we shall continue to monitor and see if that's the case. I don't think so, but of course that is a strike in a very weird position, so they must have intel of something happening. If you look at this airbase, this is the entire airbase, and the strike is actually here. So is there, it is in a way it's not attacking the airbase, but no, they are basically missile striking the airbase, which is why I reported this. So that's very interesting to note. And yeah, so this is the summary for the day of 710 to 711 for the 3rd to the 4th of February. And let's go into the conclusions. Conclusion, we're going to start off, of course, with the most important developments is over at the Avdiivka Front. So Avdiivka city. So in the northern part of the Avdiivka Front, let's go into a bit more details about the situation over here. I mentioned previously, after the Russians' success in this area here, as they push through this Dacha region or the summer houses region and push into the first street, like I mentioned, this area here is really short, and this, once the Russians are able to close it up, then the Ukrainians will not be able to penetrate through to reinforce and resupply. And in fact, even with this gap open, it's going to be very dangerous for them to resupply, and the only way will be have to go around, and this is going to be disastrous also, because this is very open grounds around here, so they can be also taken out in this area here. So with Russians knowing this clearly, because they are the real soldiers that are currently fighting in this war, they clearly know the strategic situation better than me. They definitely putting pressure on the Ukrainians, and the Ukrainians, knowing the weakness of their positions, have seemingly decided to abandon position and totally leave this entire area where they are under threat of encirclement. So this is probably what happened, which is why we saw the collapse so quickly. And it's also very hard to defend, because this is basically just 2 tree lines. So these 2 tree lines and another tree line along the roads around here, this is just too little for the Ukrainians to hold the line. They are too easily able to be pincered in the rear position and get themselves encircled in this area here. So yeah, withdrawal is actually the correct thing to do. Under such circumstances, there's just no way they can hold this position. So most likely, they left is either through both. I think it's from both ways, because the gap here wasn't closed yet, I guess, at the time. So they definitely is going to withdraw into more defendable lines. And I believe the next line of defense, of course, is along these streets, along these buildings, and particularly the more built up suburbs, and of course along this edge of this this lake over here. Then the Russians also have expanded their control around this small little neighborhood southwest of Kryamka. So this area here, the Russians are also has expanded their control. So I'm expecting that the Russians is going to push very hard in this direction. From now on, I believe they're going to push very hard to close up this entire area and not let the Ukrainian forces breathe and entrench themselves. It's going to be not so nice. If I go into Google Earth, you probably will be able to see the geography better. So in this area here, there is high grounds for the Ukrainians. You can see this area here is high grounds. So this is where the Ukrainians is going to make their stand. So oh sorry, it's so laggy. Okay, so this is where they're going to make their stand, and so the Ukrainians is going to hold this position and along this ridge line, and this is where they're going to hold the position. Then they were going to hold along this more built up suburb region here, and this is where they're going to hold the line. The Russians are going to push really hard from in this area here. This area, this Dacha region, this suburb is gone for sure. So is this one, because if the Ukrainian claims are correct and the Ukrainian lines are here, it's not going to hold. They are going to redraw as well, because this is just not a good place to be in, especially with the Russian forces now pushing southward from the Vasily region, or from the northern part of this lake, pushing downwards. They're going to get encircled or cut off from the reinforcement and resupply. So even if they are positioned here, they'll have to redraw towards this more defendable line along the ridge line and the hill. So again, I want to come down a bit more. You probably see it better. You can see the Ukrainians will hold the positions along this ridge and this hill, this ridge and this hill. So this is where they're going to hold the line. So the Russians are advance in this area is going to be very, very visible in all directions. So this is not going to be a difficult, this is not going to be an easy way for the Russians to attack, but I believe they will want to challenge the Ukrainians into it. And clearly the Russians have advantage in terms of artillery as well as air superiority. So they're going to bombard this area here until the Ukrainians don't even dare to stay there, and that's when they will try to push through and close up the entire gap. It's going to be challenging for sure. Many Russians are going to die, but so are the defenders are going to be at risk of bombardment. And so this covered this part. Now I want to is this northern part that is actually even more interesting. So this came as a little bit of a surprise to me. The Russian forces penetrate through this forest region and entered from the north of this neighborhood. Previously, the Russians are attacking from this area here. So now they are actually attacking through the forest, and they're going to fight through this area here in a very surprising fashion. But this is not the weak spot. The weak spot is actually the main road. So this is the only road. As you can see, this road along Lashtokine, this is the only road to Avdiivka, the only proper road to Avdiivka. And you can see how far is this location. We are talking about from the front line is around 1 kilometer. This is basically the distance between Russians reaching that lifeline, that one road. And the Russians don't even need to reach the road. They can just go half a kilometer with around 500 meters. That's sufficient range for the Russians to launch anti-tank guided missiles. And if they go through a little bit more, another 200 to 300 meters, between 200 to 400 meters is effective range of rifles. It's going to be disastrous for the Ukrainians. So the more natural, if the Russians really want to encircle the Ukrainian forces, I think the natural thing to do is to go in this direction towards the south of the Koplan and create a kind of blockade against the Ukrainians from redrawing and using this road. So the idea is to cut off this road. So let me draw it in blue, cut off this road. That's the plan. So this area here will be the killer blow if the Russians are able to do it. And the question will be, would the Russians want to do it? Because we have seen many times, including several the battle at Severodonetsk and Lysychansk, and also the battle at Bakhmut, the Russians always leave a place for a road or so for the Ukrainians to withdraw, and they never really want to try to encircle the Ukrainian forces. So this, except for Mariupol is the only one that they really encircle. So will the Russians really want to encircle, or will they give them a leaving road? I'm not sure. But the natural thing for, I think, anyone who is a military or war enthusiast, if we like war stuff, this is the natural thing to do. While the Russians are already pushing in this area here, you're going to close up the gap, force the Ukrainians to hold that line around this area, which means that they need to send reinforcement in this direction, and they also need to hold this line around here. But then the resupply can only come in this direction. Oh my god, you can see how disastrous the situation is going to be. The roads around, these dirt roads along the tree lines are shot through. These are all not very usable roads. FPV drones are flying all over this place. The Russians are having a lot of control around this area here just through FPV drones. So the situation is just disastrous. I predict the Ukrainians are going to withdraw away from the filtration plant. I don't think they will want to hold this position anymore. They're going to hold it along this southern part of the. Let me withdraw. They're going to withdraw, hold the front around here, around the southern part, and of course they're going to hold it along the high buildings at Khimik region or the Ninth district, and of course along this ridge line, and hope for the best, and basically push their forces, their reserve, to plug this hole that is developing. The Ukrainian forces that are positioning at the coke plant is going to sit there and do nothing. The Russians are going to go around it. They are not going to penetrate into the coke plant unless they see that the Ukrainians have withdrawn from that plant, and then they will try to seize it. If not, tentatively, I don't think the Russians want to push it, because the entire strategic situation is just way too advantageous for the Russian side. So this is the a lot of arrow situation I want to talk about in Avdiivka. So otherwise, some other things, let's go by sequence. Over the Kupyansk Front, Russian forces continue to push at Ivanivka. Is interesting to me. The battle of Sinkivka is getting very boring. So we shall watch to see what the Russians are up to at Ivanivka. Will we have another sudden info drop that suddenly the Russians capture a lot of grounds? I do not know. Kreminna, is unusual stuff, nothing to talk about. The Siversk situation, last mentioned analysis was that the Russians is pushing from the Bilohorivka region towards and try to capture the high ground north of Vasily. Not sure if it's still happening. We shall continue to monitor. Like always, fighting for the high ground is going to be always difficult. Bakhmut Front is also getting very stale. It's just a lot of assets are getting deployed in this area here. We shall watch and see. And Niu-York Front, this probing attack is nothing worth talking about. Avdiivka we covered. Like previous, I've mentioned, this is a very interesting way to reach the road. By right, there is actually this outer pincer that was developing, which didn't work out. Now they went through the inside, despite there was this area, this fighting, this biting down of the Avdiivka. Yeah, let's watch and see. This is fascinating to me. I think this is going to be in the history books, in the war books. That people will be looking at the strategies and the entire developments of this battle of Avdiivka, in years to come. So otherwise, the rest of the situation remains nothing special. Voleda attack is interesting. We shall wait and see if this develops into anything. Zoleta Neva continues. You can watch the previous conclusion. I've talked a bit more about this, the importance of Zoleta Neva. And so the rest is more or less the same thing. It's interesting about this battle at Estelianka in the Zaporizhzhia Front towards Shebaki. This, just for the Russians to cut off this road, means that the Ukrainians will have to go one big round just to link up Orikhiv and the Kayamsky sector. So let's say Russians take Shabaki and maybe cut off the road near Novoandrievka. The Ukrainians over at Kreminna sector will have to go from Orikhiv over here. They have to link all the way up and able to reach down here or go to Kreminna. Is one hell of a big round just by cutting off this road. So this is the significance of this front line. This attack over here, this is a weak spot. If the Russians take it, the Ukrainians will just have to extend their logistics. Yeah, not ideal. And of course, Krinky continues to be a thing. I'm not sure for how long. I think at this rate, I don't think not much longer. I think they have already retreated by too much troops over there. So anyway, this is the conclusions. Thank you for watching. Do press the like button, subscribe. I'll see you guys in the next update.